Let me find out.
What?
Well, I'm gonna put this hat on so my earphones stop falling out. 5D
Cool.
chess. Let's go.
Yeah, I'll just do an intro.
So my
What's
name is
going
Jonathan.
on? Alex here from Natural Testosterone. And in this video, I have Johnny Sexton over here.
Johnny Sexton, the trans right activist. What is it, my dude? What's happening?
Yeah, so we want to talk about, let's talk about like betas, like make you realize how beta you actually are. Betas, feminine man, the specimen of today.
The specimen of today, the natural male, as they call it these days. Okay, so I mean, a big part of realizing that you're a beta is actually experience. So, for example, you might have had a girlfriend, then something happened, you realize you were kind of making these mistakes, and yeah, like a lot of guys tend to get resentful after their first big proper breakup. They start to hate women, say, oh, I did all this, but they don't realize what they did wrong themselves. And that's a huge problem among men, and especially in the red pill communities. They blame the woman because they don't exactly know what they did wrong. They thought because they were giving all this time, giving themselves so freely, buying her stuff, that she belonged to them. And the reality is, a woman kind of does not want a guy that's after her all the time. She's looking for more of a guy that's doing his own thing that she wants to be pursuing.
Exactly. And when it comes to these things, these aspects, it comes to women and naturally, while we as men, it would come to us naturally if we were at a right hormonal balance, if that makes sense. But we as men should learn these things as well. And a lot of men lack the information when it comes to how they should be, when it comes to social dynamics, how to act and things like that.
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes from like you get the highly androgenic guys who develop early in high school. They doing really well in sports, and automatically it's more or less like they're not entitled, but they've earned that high status female of their school, and then they kind of go along being used to that. Whereas a guy who's more low status and develop later, like myself, we might be more used to kind of getting what we can get, and then that can affect our choices in the future, our standards in women, and how we actually handle women. So like a guy with a high standards woman, he's going to be pursued by a lot of women, and then he's going to be the one in a state of abundance who's used to projecting girls, whereas guys who more or less raised up without that have to kind of learn how to get a woman in a sense, and they're the ones pursuing, which makes it a little bit difficult because you don't always know what women want. They're from different planets. So
Exactly. Yeah, maybe let's get into it, like keep it like simple in a way of, let's go over the kind of symptoms, what like these beta men have, like the symptoms, like what does a beta male act like, and let's talk about some of the hormones that come into play when it comes to making them act like that.
yeah, so the first thing I want to say is, like, I don't like the term beta male, because to me it's like, although it's a generalization of certain characteristics, like some days I feel like a fucking Chad, a unit, a sex god. Other days I can wake up and I'm like, I go to the gym, I feel nervous, I feel shaky, I just want to be left alone. And it's like, okay, am I the alpha male or am I the beta male? And it's like, I'm kind of like a mixture of the two, but it depends on how other things is going in my life. So that's why I don't really like those terms. But
Yeah, I agree with you,
I
but I feel like people understand what I mean when I
oh
say
yeah,
beta.
yeah, they're very simplistic terms to understand. I mean, there's
Yeah,
traits associated with being an alpha, and traits associated with being a beta, but then there's kind of
that
in
there's
between
giga
traits, and
chad.
that giga chat. I mean, there's in between traits, and that's where I think like the whole sigma male thing came from,
Yeah.
where you're like a crossover introversion and whatnot. But
Hybrid
yeah,
specimen.
hybrids. But yeah, exactly. I mean, that's what us guys who, didn't have that high T from a young age, like we're more inclined to be more Sigma males. But yeah, I think that's why that's caught on.
But I feel like if you're right here listening to this and you're pursuing success, you're going to be better off than the guys who started off high T, because they're going to be stuck
Oh yeah.
average because they're satisfied. Just like Johnny and I, we started very low, but because of that, we pursued it, and we're going to come ahead of the guys that were born alpha, whatever, you know?
Precisely. I mean, there's a lot of guys it's stereotypical that the guys that peak in high school, that's their peak in their life, and then they kind of just go downhill from there. And then there's us who are like, D grade students who, we're not stupid people, but we had shit grades. We didn't socialize very well. And it's like we're trying to figure out what the fuck is wrong with us and actually correcting those mistakes and actually learning what we wouldn't taught from a young age. So that's what kind of takes us ahead. And I think a lot of young guys nowadays definitely need a more masculine figure to get them in the right direction and actually get them towards where they want to be in the future, establishing an idea for how they should live their life and actually being able to pursue it.
Amen, amen. So let's get into the actual symptoms. So what type of symptoms did you experience when you realized you were like on that low range?
Bro, the biggest symptom was I didn't realize that I was at that low range. It's like, for me, when I was young, I'm not sure whether it's because of the Asperger's or whatever, but like, I didn't know what anxiety was, but everything was super scary. Like, I remember the first time a girl hugged me properly, who wasn't my mother. That was in college. So I was about 16, going 17.
Yeah.
And I just froze, bro. I was like, yo, what's going on? I didn't know what to do. And this has never happened to me before. And like, that was such a weird experience because for me, life was just video games and porn. That was it.
Yeah. And so what symptoms did you experience, like physically and mentally and things like that?
Everything was like I could not go to town with friends. Like people would ask me to go out, I'd make up some excuse. I did not want to go out. I want to be in my comfort zone all the time.
Right.
Pure anxiety, a high voice as well. Like my voice, like right now, it's not the deepest in the world, but when my voice actually broke at about 14, 15, you couldn't even tell.
Yeah.
It was that bad. There was a slight change in pitch, but you couldn't tell because I was in such an estrogen dominant state that, yeah, it affected my puberty. So voice was a big one for me. Things like facial features, even the structure of your face tends to change. Even at later years, I was like, what, 23, 24 when my face started to masculinize.
Yeah.
I like my beard started growing when I was about 20, almost 26. And that was after I started working on the hormones. It all just started growing through. And chest hair as well. It all came
Let's
through
go.
once I started, let's go, to boost my testosterone. So I think that's why it's a huge factor. There's a lot of guys, especially vegans, who they get into those older ages and they've got like pubic hair on their face.
Exactly.
So
Maybe let me go over the kind of symptoms I experienced. So for me, I was very skinny. I was not pleasant to be around. I was very like annoying, like very emotional, reactive. Like
still are a bit. I'm joking.
I was very like very bitchy in a way, like a
Yeah,
female,
yeah.
like reactive, not
Mm,
fun to be around. Emotional, like anxiety, like I was always usually the quietest kid everywhere. Like I
yeah,
could I
yeah.
could spend a day with my friends, with a group of friends, and I wouldn't say a word, just hang out, just like play football, whatever, but I wouldn't really talk. Super like
Yeah.
lack of self-confidence, constantly seeking validations from others,
Mhm.
not standing to my own, always like, even if I didn't agree with something, I would go with it because I didn't want the
Yeah.
judgment and the attention.
Conformity. Hmm.
Exactly. And then like anxiety, like I would be afraid to talk to people. like I would, not just women, like other guys, like other alpha
Yeah,
guys in my
yeah.
school. And I remember when I actually started going to the gym and pursuing this journey, I remember like actually starting to talk with these guys, and I realized they're normal guys, and like
Yeah,
the transformation of like
exactly.
of being able to talk to people, and it's so much funner. Like I enjoy talking to people when I'm in the gym right now. I like to start talking to people when I get the
Mhm.
opportunity, because I know it'll
Yeah,
spike my dopamine, and it's fun because the next day when you see them, or knuckle touch, what's up, winner effect,
yeah,
another one, winner effect, women see that,
exactly.
things like that,
You see him hit a PR winner effect, you get that boost as well. I mean, yeah, it's socializing at the gym is a big indicator. I mean, when I don't feel high test, I'm very quiet. I keep to myself and I just focus on my stuff. I kind of want to be in there and out there as fast as possible. When my T's high, bro, I'm up there, I'm flirting with the girls, I'm just enjoying myself, I'm reckless, feel like an absolute king. And yeah, it really does make a difference. There's a bit of a contrast with me. I think, I'm not sure whether it's because of my, I don't know, Asperger's or whatever, but like some days people might see me come in like energetic as fuck. The other day I might be like low T because I've overtrained. And yeah, I probably appear really bipolar at the gym, but I mean that's just that's just how my brain works. But
yeah, I'm very similar in that end. Like I go through the spectrum of like very quiet, calm, like not quiet, I'm just calm. Like I don't have the need to like talk to people. Like I can sit in
yeah,
silence. I'm very comfortable with that end. But that's just a genetic thing, I guess. Like with my dad, like I remember we went on a journey for like 3 hours, 4 hours in the car. We didn't speak a word, but we're just like that, just like a genetic thing.
I would say a lot of it is environmental because I've tested this out. Like sometimes even when I'm high T, I'm still not talkative. But then say I work a shift with my friend where we're just talking all the time. The next day, my not only is my T really high, but I'm like an absolute unit. I don't give a damn what I say. I don't give a damn what anyone thinks. I'm just
Yeah.
there like, yo, what's happening? Whoa, you're looking good today. How you doing? Like, I feel like a fucking king. So I think it's a mixture of that high T plus being in a masculine environment that allows it to come through. So I think
Yeah.
that's a big factor people need to pay more attention to.
And another thing is being in a position of your cup is full, so full, you go around, you want to talk to people, not because you want to talk
Mhm.
about yourself, but
Yeah.
you're genuinely like interested what's going with them, like what's up, like kind of thing.
Mhm.
With betas, they're like very, like we're still men, we like to talk about ourselves, but it's less of it. Like when you're talking to a guy, all he wants to talk about is himself, rather than come out of his, as if his cup is
Yeah.
empty, full. And another thing, when you're talking to like beta guys, and you as a grounded individual, they will like want to keep talking to fill in the
Yeah.
silence. That's another
Mhm.
thing I
But
noticed.
also they want to kind of absorb that energy as well because they feel that you are supplying that high quality energy and they resonate with that. It's like you put a what is it? You put a let's say a motivational speaker, let's say Gary V, or he doesn't like to call himself that, but a motivational speaker on stage, you have all these like beta people, whatever, who aren't taking action, and then they come out feeling like they've got all this energy, they're ready to go. And of course, that only lasts for like a few days, but it's still that resonance, that vibration frequency that comes from the person emitting those waves, and it's absorbed readily by everyone. And again, vibration, bro, it transmutes people. It is literal transmutation, but the problem is it's not just for good things, it's for bad things as well. That's why if you're around negative people who just play video games, people who are depressed, people who are family members who are alcoholics or whatnot, they will give you that bad energy and it will pull you down.
Another thing I wanted to ask you, have you ever noticed, like I've noticed this recently, that's more of a, I've only recently noticed this, like just talking to guys, like
Mhm.
I know these like like it kind of scares me at the moment because I'm like super self-aware recently of like
Mhm.
I see through like what's going on with them, like these beta things that
Yeah,
like the way
you can see
like the other day I
the
was
state.
talking to someone and this guy was proper like just full on talking about himself and he couldn't stop talking. But I was just chilling, I was just like leaning over, like listening to
Mhm.
him. Yeah, yeah, that's amazing. And I can just see him blush, but he keeps talking, and I noticed like I made this guy like react to me, and it's interesting to me the way that happens and how women should act like that.
Mhm.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, so I'd say there's two takes on it. There's one where he could just be really lonely, and people who are lonely, they like to just get their shit out because they've got no like in healthy relationships as humans used to have. You used to call your friend and just have like an hour conversation about shit, and that like once you get rid of that, you'd feel better.
Yeah,
And people aren't so much like that anymore. Texting is not the same.
not the same.
It's not the same. But another thing would be, if they're overly excitatory, if they're in a state where they feel like they've got too much energy. A lot of guys with bipolar are like this, bipolar disorder, and they basically just like they talk until they're gassed out. Then after they just want to be alone for the next few days because they just pushed everything out of them.
Interesting. Yeah. Sweet. So these are kind of the symptoms. Let's go over the reasons why this is happening. Like we can talk about like
Talking
estrogen,
about this all day.
testosterone, DHT,
Mhm.
prolactin, maybe serotonin, dopamine.
Yeah. So again, like it could be because someone like we have excitation and we have inhibition. I don't know if that's a word. Inhibition. And the thing is, like most people these days, because of things like endocrine disruptors, foods like soy, all this garbage that's attacking our inhibitory cells, not cells, chemicals. We tend to be in a state of overexcitation, bro. I'm losing my words right now.
Yeah, no
So
worries.
yeah,
You're calm.
we tend to be like more jumpy, more anxious. That's why so many people do have anxieties, because they're constantly in that state of excitation. And then it's like the thing is with anxiety, people don't realize this, but anxiety and excitement are exactly the same. The only difference is how your brain perceives it.
Right, right. And
One
then,
thing
yeah,
Yeah, sorry. Well, one thing I do if I'm, I don't know, meeting up with a girl, like, and I feel a bit nervous, I tell myself I'm not nervous, I'm excited for this. And it actually works well in my favor. The only problem is when you're in an excitatory state, you bust in like 3 pumps. So
that's facts.
yeah, there's a supplement. Oh, I always forget the name of it. Cordyceps militaris. Dose dependently, it makes you last longer in the bedroom. So that's always a little cool hack.
Do you know what I have? It's literally right there. It's like
Yes.
it's this thing, like it's like this no numbing spray.
This what?
No numbing spray. It's like
Right.
man, I used to use it back in the days.
Oh man. I bought this little
You
pill
can
one
see it
time
there.
for when I was in Bulgaria. And I don't know what it was, bro, but the shit they put in it, it gave me the hardest erection I ever had in my life. And it lasted for about 10 hours straight. Didn't go down. Even when I slept, I woke up the next morning, it was still there. But I did have the best sex of my life for that night. So
Bro, one time this dodgy company sent me, oh, they were like, oh, we have this like tea boosting coffee or whatever blend. And they're from like somewhere in Africa. And I was like, okay, send it over. They send it over, right? And I was like, okay, I'll take it as a pre-workout. So I'm making it, whatever. It doesn't taste the best. I have it. I go to the gym and I feel funny. like I feel kind of DPDR in a way, but kind of
Mhm.
off. Halfway through the workout, I was like, I need to leave because I just feel weird. And for the next 8 hours or so, I just had a boner nonstop, and I was like, what is going on?
Do you know the name of it? I think I know what that could have been.
It said they had Tonka Ali in it, but I doubt it.
No, there's something else. It's like a lot of African herbs are very, very, very bonerific.
Yeah.
So a lot of things from Africa, they do tend to skyrocket your libido and stuff. Um, I can't remember I took it. I remember there was one herb I took before the gym, and then all it did was make me horny. And I was trying to take it as a replacement for caffeine because it gives you that energy boost. But I'm trying to remember the name of it. We
Yohamba?
mentioned it before. Yohimbi, yeah,
Yeah.
that's the one.
Yeah. And I actually never tried that, but I heard good things about it. I know some people even inject it to areas of stubborn belly fat. I don't know about that.
Yeah, it's raises your metabolism, makes you burn fat quicker, but also as well, it's got some weird effect. It does something called fear extinction, where essentially, like, say you do something and it's out of the way. When you have that fear extinction effect, you will no longer be afraid of it. So say, for example, you're afraid of dogs, you take your himbine, and then you go out and pet a dog. Your fear of dogs is going to be gone after that. It's crazy. So there's a lot of
Mm,
potential for things, especially in the dating scene. Say if you take something like Yohimbi and you combine it with, let's say, something that affects neurochemistry, like microdosing LSD, then you take something to calm you down a bit, whether it's L-theanine, taurine, maybe some phenibut, and you have that combination of effect. You do whatever you're afraid of, and then it's going to seem simple after that. Even the next few days, you'll have no issues. So
that's
it's
interesting.
wiring your brain to get rid of the fear, so you can do it without the substance.
Uh, Opioids like tramadols have an effect like that. You know what tramadol is?
Uh, I'm bad with names, bro.
What?
I'm bad with names. You have
Yeah,
to.
I'm pretty sure it's a opioid, but it kind of numbs you to the point of like you're just in the now. You
It
just
sounds
think now,
it sounds kind of similar to kratom,
right? And
which is
another
a
thing
weird
with
kratom.
your hembine, I heard when it comes to your hembine, it can be
Mhm.
in a way of it works for some people, and for some people it doesn't work at all. Have you ever heard of that?
I mean, I need context to that. Like,
Yeah,
for example, like what specifically would that be?
like just overall the herb when it comes to, I think when it comes to the actual erectile dysfunction benefits, like some people are just not, don't react to it at all.
So the thing is, erectile dysfunction is very complex. I know that because I dealt with it for many years, and I'd say, for example, like when I took Yohimbine for the first time, like I had really bad ED. Like there was nothing getting me up, and my libido would spike. I get a little bit horny, and then, but again, like it depends on the mechanism. There's so many factors that can cause erectile dysfunction that it's hard to say, it's simply one thing like testosterone, when it could be dopamine, it could be a mechanical issue, it could be, there's just a lot of factors to cover with the ED.
Exactly. Okay, I think we're coming off topic, so let's get back into the what are the um, catalysts to making guys act that way. So we have serotonin, for instance. When your
Mhm.
serotonin is high, you may act in a way of like depression, DPDR.
Yeah,
It's high
numb.
in times of stress to slower down your metabolism. You kind of feel
You
drowsy
feel
more.
icky.
Yeah,
You want to be
icky.
alone. You don't want anyone to bother you. You can't communicate well with people. You can't think properly. You just want to be alone in bed, and that's like the comfort zone of serotonin. Yeah, sure, it's comfortable, but like you don't want to be like that because you will feel shit when you're doing it. You just want dopamine all the time.
Exactly. Yeah. And then the opposite would be dopamine. So you're going to do things to optimize your dopamine. Then you have things like estrogen.
There's things like norepinephrine as well. You can't like discount that. So
Yeah.
I mean, like with dopamine and norepinephrine, or noradrenaline as it should be called,
Yeah.
it's like dopamine converts into norepinephrine, which then gives you that drive to like move forward, do something, and then that converts back into dopamine, and it's a kind of like circle that keeps you moving forward. But that's the thing. If you've got an issue with norepinephrine, for example, then you could have all the dopamine in the world, but you might not be going forward because it's that drive, that little like jolt that gets you from A to B as well. So yeah, important to consider that. But estrogen, when I took letrozole to nuke my estrogen, I felt really calm, but I also wasn't getting shit done. Again, I didn't have the drive to take me forward, and again, norepinephrine, didn't have that.
Then we have prolactin. I had huge issues with prolactin. If you look at my videos from like a year ago, my face was like this, man. Like, just like super bloated, very like having the need. So prolactin lowers your dopamine, right?
Yeah.
When I remember that time, I was like constantly needing to consume caffeine, like stimulants, give me any stimulants, like nootropics, be constantly at it. And yeah,
that like I'd say prolactin is a huge, I kind of visualize it as a huge hole in the ground. The higher it gets, the more you dig yourself deeper into it, because it's one of those things that like it kind of just makes you completely useless. Like it really does, whether it's going to the gym, like having motivation, testosterone, dopamine, norepinephrine, it's going to crush all of those. Everything that makes you want to be go forward and be a man, be successful. Prolactin just crushes, and prolactin, I like to think of it as a long-term symptom of an ongoing problem.
what would you say the reasons are for high prolactin?
Again, it's going to be okay. So dopamine, if you're screwing up your dopamine all the time, like so many people think they have ADHD. I have ADHD, but like that's because I actually fixed all the other problems and I realized there's still a huge dopaminergic issue. Whereas the average person, they think they have ADHD, they go to the doctor, they get diagnosed as ADHD, but the problem is that like they're just giving their dopamine up away freely. They're watching TV all the time, spiking their dopamine, taking out all their dopamine reserves, and then they wonder why they can't do anything. So raising dopamine and is going to decrease prolactin anyway, because they work like inverse. So the higher dopamine you have, the less prolactin you have. And the problem is because everyone's draining their dopamine, their prolactin is going to be high. And then like when it comes down to things like sex as well, that affects your refractory period. So you're going to bust a nut and that's you done for the rest of the year. So it's like, it's not good prolactin because it just takes you deeper and deeper into the problem.
Yeah, the reason why we get a spike in prolactin after sex is to prevent dopamine from frying our receptors.
Yeah, exactly.
So now imagine if you have high prolactin constantly, like you will just feel numb and you're going to be chasing that next dopamine and you're not going to really feel it that much.
Yeah, and it's interesting because when you actually masturbate, you get less of a prolactin release, and you imagine that you get higher prolactin because masturbators, in general, have higher prolactin, but it's that less prolactin that they're getting that allows their dopamine receptors to fry, and then as their dopamine receptors fry, their long-term prolactin goes up, And then, of course, they go down this place where they have to search for more and more dopamine, and it's like a repeating cycle. So that's why things like pornography, masturbation, they really do mess up your brain really badly.
Exactly. And then when it comes to DHT and estrogen, they come into play when it comes to your dopamine. High DHT equals a prolonged dopamine effect leading to motivation, drive, pursuing your goals. Estrogen shortens the dopamine, leading to addictions.
Estrogen's an interesting one because it might, shorten how long dopamine lasts, but it's also important for the production of dopamine. So, like when I did letrozole, my dopamine wasn't that high, and I didn't have that motivation. So, again, you got to consider that while high estrogen is bad, we do need estrogen for basic functions. So it's about just keeping it in the right place.
Yeah, definitely. It's the right balance. Like I personally, when I was looking at my blood results, I never had issues with estrogen. It was actually low-ish. I always had issues with prolactin.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Prolactin, let's say serotonin as well. When it comes to serotonin, 95% of it is produced in the gut. Hence why optimizing the foods that you're eating, making sure that the foods that you are eating are being easily digestible, you're eating enough calories, you're not under eating, and so on and so on.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, like prolactin and serotonin, both of them go up as dopamine goes down. So again, higher prolactin is going to lead to higher serotonin on the basis that dopamine's lower. So it's like a constant like seesaw effect between those estrogen dominant chemicals like estrogen, serotonin, prolactin, cortisol even. And then on the other side, you've got, DHT, you've got testosterone, dopamine, etc., norepinephrine. And it's like trying to sway the balance towards that androgen dominance as opposed to the estrogen dominance.
Exactly. And for people listening, we're talking about hormones. Hormones are chemical messengers, and messengers bind to these receptors, and that's what makes these things come into effect. And then these things manifest over time, morphing you to a specific individual. If you're more dominant in the bad hormones we talked about, you're going to be more of that beta tendency guy. When you have all these androgenic hormones higher, you will manifest in a way that you will be more assertive, confident, driven, motivated, giga chad type of individual.
Giga chad. Yeah, and it's important to keep in mind, like your brain is constantly rewiring itself. For every single second, your brain is morphing to its environment. So the more you can construct that environment that gets you where you want to be, the more your brain is going to morph into that and actually help you do those jobs you need to do. So if you watch porn all the day, your brain is going to morph into someone who watches porn every day, someone dependent on that pleasure, and someone who, you get home from work, the first thing your brain thinks is like, I need to watch porn. And then you're stuck in that cycle of repeating the same thing because your brain has become that. And that's what neuroplasticity is. It's morphing your brain into your environment. So that's why it's just so important to actually push yourself. It's difficult. It really is difficult to go from where you currently are to where you want to be. But you got to keep pursuing, even if it's baby steps forward. As long as you're moving towards that goal, your brain will begin to change with the person you're becoming.
Amen. So we talked about the beta guy, the symptoms, the actual catalysts. What would one should do to go from his current state to his desired state? What is the thing that bridges the gap between their current state and their desired state? So number one would be, optimizing their testosterone levels, following like the NTLS, so nutrition training, lifestyle, intelligence supplementation. When it comes to nutrition, eating the right amount of calories, right macronutrient ratios, eating the foods that work with you, the foods that do not cause gut distress, eating foods that are high in nutrient dense. They have a lot of minerals and vitamins. Then when it comes to training in a way that activates as much muscle possible in the shortest period of time, progressively overloading, striving to improve your androgen receptor density. Then when it comes to lifestyle, removing blockers, adding boosters, then supplementation, using things like minerals, vitamins to fix micronutrient deficiencies, and using things like adaptogenic herbs and so on. Anything else you want to add to that?
So before all that, I'd say the most important thing is awareness. Like, you need to be aware of how you want to be, how you should be, and what's going to get you to where you are. Like, you've got to look at yourself from an objective point of view and say, right, I am not the person I want to be. And then try and find someone who is, whether it's a role model or someone you just look up to, and find like kind of 5 things about them and write those down, and do that for 5 different individuals. And then when you have like 25 different things about how you want to, like, what you respect about these guys, write down the 5 from those 25 that you resonate the most with, and use that to kind of direct where you want to go and who you are as an individual, and follow those rules.
Exactly, yeah. I highly recommend, like Johnny said, get self-aware of your current state, where you actually are, because a lot of guys don't really realize where they are. They don't realize what type of symptoms they have, and how does that come into effect, and then realize what their desired state is, and then bridging the gap by putting in the right plan in place. So your current state, where you are right now, is because of the things that you've done in the past, cause and effect. And your desired state, you need the right steps as well. Let's just say you take someone like Arnold Schwarzenegger, for instance, and you take all of his muscle from him. It would take him such a quicker time to get to his peak state, not because of hard work and discipline, but because he knows the steps, he has the wisdom, he has the knowledge. So for you to go from your current state to your desired state, you need to know the steps. And like Johnny said, find someone that was in your current state and went to your desired state, and follow what they have to say. And pick a few guys. Don't be going to a bunch of guys, because when you go into this cycle, you will notice that one guy will contradict another guy. Like me and Johnny, we have contradictions as well. Like, we might not agree on some things, but at the end of the day, we still aim for the same goal, even though we might not agree on some things. But it's the 20 that gives you 80% of the results, kind of.
Yeah, it's different shoes take you to different different shoes take you to the same path. Well,
exactly.
That's a shit quote, but different, we've got different shoes, but we're going on the same path. There we go, fixed it. But it's you don't want to kind of focus solely on one person. You might prioritize someone as your father figure, that's fine, but ideally you want to kind of split it up a bit. Like, for me, it's like Elliot Hulse was a big one, Jordan Peterson, Gary V, Bruce Lee as well. And the 5th one was Conor McGregor, but I don't think as much anymore, because what's happened over the past few years. But yeah, those are the kind of figures that I aim towards. I remember there was a period where I really was idolizing Conor McGregor for, like, him literally manifesting his entire reality. How he said as a kid he used to go out in front of us, in front of just like a field or whatever, and he used to do the thing when he would just do that, and he would visualize a crowd around him. Then you look at him like 10 years later, where he's doing that in front of thousands and millions of people on TV. It's incredible how much power you have, so long as you can see what you want to do. And actually, when I was doing that, people started saying I started to look more like him. It was weird.
You do have that beard action.
Exactly. People started calling me Conor McGregor. I was doing boxing at the time, and it was really interesting. But like, you will become what you visualize, and that's why it's so important to actually go out there, spend some time thinking where you are, where you want to be, and just picture yourself how you see your life being, and then work backwards. Try and do the steps backwards from that into the very simplest step. For example, the first step could literally be just like not even opening a book, just putting a book in your hand.
Exactly.
Just that.
Yeah, it's that's small investment. And another thing, with that being said, you need to look at the other spectrum. Now realize what will happen if you're watching these individuals who are quite the opposite, the toxic side, which most people have in their
Feminist.
life more of. It's going to lead you into the other side. When it comes to my like my journey, like I had to make a lot of sacrifices. I had to remove people from my life so that I can pursue what I want to pursue, because I do realize like your RAS, or reticular activated system, like if you're constantly surrounded around negativity, that's what your brain is going to be clinged onto.
That's what the news is. The news literally is just a chronic disease telling you that you're sick. The disease is literally, the disease ironically is the news that tells you you're sick. That's the disease.
Exactly. Yeah, I was listening to one of my mentors, Sam Ovens, and that was before he was like became rich and famous. He was just a regular guy working at Vodafone.
Yeah.
And his girlfriend invited him to he thought it was a beach house initially, but it was actually an island, a rich, like his, I don't know, some relative island. And he went there and he was like surprised by the different things that guy, the actual owner was doing, in a way of when everyone was watching the news, he would just stand up and walk outside, and Sam Ovens would be like, why is this guy like leaving? That's so disrespectful. Like, why doesn't that guy want to know what's going on around the world? So he asked him afterwards, and he said, like, I do not allow any negativity into my mind, because you can't really do anything about it. All you can do is sit on it and think about it, and then it comes to you, and it can ruin your day.
Yeah, like one thing in my head, I know you always say perfection's paralysis. Yeah. Paralysis is perfection. One thing I always say is that, like, in my environment, like my house just feels really toxic, and I feel like I'm being kept back from growing in this house. And as much as I like to say that, just bite the bullet and go ahead, like when you sit down with your family, your dad gets drunk and whatever, start saying the shit, the TV's on, and you can't avoid it because they're watching the TV, and it's just like a constant subconscious reminder that you're a piece of shit and you won't ever achieve anything more than this depressive, dystopic world that we live in. And it's like, that is not the truth. That is what they want you to believe is the truth. At the end of the day, the truth is literally what you believe. And that's the beautiful thing. You can actually choose what you believe to be true, and it will be true. That's why it's so important to manifest your reality, to visualize. That's the power we have to control our surroundings, so the surroundings can control us.
Amen. Exactly. Yeah. And mindset is a huge one as well. Like, I've been working with clients for about 2 years now. Even though I have clients who succeed and clients who don't, even though I give them the same amount of attention, custom plans, programs, they get the same things. What differentiates the two is the mindset. The winners just want it more. They're focused, the laser beam focused.
Yeah, they do. They actually pay attention to what you say rather than just take a few things on board. They're actually geared towards like making this their priority, and that's a good reason why the pricing you offer your coaching is important, because when people spend a huge amount, like, they're more geared towards doing it. Like, they don't want this to be wasted. This is important to them. Whereas if you offer like a kind of low amount, they're like, oh, this is, it's not a big much. I'll just do it, see how I feel after, and that's not going to get them good results.
No, you're actually giving them a disservice when you're charging less.
Yeah.
Because you want to create a win-win scenario. You want them to win to get them results, and you need to win. If you get paid properly, you're working with less clients, you can focus on them more, and they win as well. So it's a win-win scenario. If you charge little, you're not going to give them the results. So it's a loss-loss scenario. They lose and you lose. So it's
I mean, ultimately, if they really believed, they're screaming for this low money. I mean, all this information is free. Literally just like find your own, make trials and errors, like make all the mistakes. I spent years making mistakes. I developed terrible gynecomastia. If you want to go ahead and do that, do that. It's like, okay, the information's out there, but you're going to mess yourself up if you do the wrong things and you follow the wrong guidance.
Exactly.
You probably will at some point.
You can do either A, find a mentor, pay him, get the results. The information is precisely, he knows exactly, he went through everything. He's worked with a lot of clients. Or B, spend the next 6-7 years trial and error, going through the ups and downs and finding your own thing. And yeah. I've done that with fitness, testosterone optimization. And when I went to business, I was like, no, I ain't doing that again. I invested straight away. I was like, I'm not going through that stuff again. And I invested, and it saved me a lot of time.
Yeah, it did. It took me so many, like, if people knew how much time I spent reading about things, supplementation, diet, trial and error and everything. I used to spend about 4 hours a day minimum every single day on the Reddit forum, browsing shit, testing shit, buying new supplements, doing all this shit. And oftentimes I get negative results. And it's like, all this time and money, like, bro, you'd literally be saving more by like paying like $1,000. Honestly.
Man, like, what we have to offer is, like, you can't really even put a price on it. Like, every time clients go through my program, they're like, bro, why do you charge so little? Like, that's what I always get. That's why I keep increasing my prices, because I don't realize, like how much does TRT cost? It costs a few K a year. So you're saving people thousands.
You, like, if you live in like Europe, you could just buy, or even America, you could just buy it illegally, do it yourself, inject testosterone and anthate. It costs you like what, a few $100s, maybe like $300 a year. Not expensive, but again,
and that's just testosterone. There's other aspects. DHEA, androsterone, whatever.
Androsterone, androstenedione, DHT metabolites. There's
pregnenolone.
There's a lot of aspects, and I think I'd say if you are on TRT, it might be worth doing something like pine pollen every day, but I don't know how effective that would be every day.
Yeah. So I'm still waiting for my pine pollen.
Dude, you've been waiting for like 3 months.
I know, man. It's like,
I've ordered another batch as well. I love it, man. It is honestly like, if I'm going to do cold approach, bro, I don't give a damn. I'm taking some pine pollen. I'm going out there, some taurine and pine pollen. That'll sort me out, bro. I will go up there and be like, yo, what's up, Johnny? How you doing? Excellent, blah, blah, blah. Next thing you know, I got a slap in the face because I said something too cheeky. Either way, I learned my lesson. So that's why I love pine pollen.
Oh, I'm excited.
Dude, I hope I haven't overhyped it too much, but like, everyone I've got to try it has said the same thing as me.
I feel like I kind of do know what. Maybe I don't. Do you recommend that you're like, would you take caffeine with it, or would that be overkill?
I mean, I've taken it at the gym. Mainly if I take it, it's usually for the gym once a week, and that is going to be with caffeine. But it's just like, you have your testosterone where you feel good in that, but this just gives you something extra. It's those metabolites, the androsterone, androstenedione. They just really give you that little edge that makes you feel invincible, and that's what makes the whole difference.
I found with optimizing your hormones, like, many would think that, like, oh, you're this cocky, whatever, like arrogant. No, I feel like you're like this humble, confident individual. Like, I become more humble when my bitch hormones are up. I'm very very like
stressful.
Yeah, like, in a way of like, I need this, like as in, like, I need everything. Like, was something distracting me? Like,
I can hear the Polish in the background now.
Yeah.
Mówicie, kurwa.
my neighbor. It's like, with testosterone, like your testosterone is high, but you still realize like my head, it's like there's like God, and I'm always going to be humble towards him, like because you can get of to a spectrum of like I'm super confident, even God can't take me down. That's like super, like that's arrogant, I would say.
That's trend, bro. That's
Yeah.
trend. But yeah, I think like with pine pollen.
You ever watch that guy on TikTok? That what's his name? On
Which one?
1 gram of trend on your Johnson or whatever. D
One
trend.
gram of Trent. D
D.
Trent. I've seen that guy. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. He's very androgenic. What can I say? Probably the D Trent.
Yeah.
But
Well, he talks about how trend is not like bad for your health, or it's fine, all that stuff. Talk
you
about
mad,
like what you experienced.
bro? Like walking up the stairs is like effort on Trent. Okay, so for the guys who don't know, back when I was like 21-ish, I had a breakup with my ex, and I just was like, fuck it, let's do steroids. So I did like a cycle or whatever, experimented with a few things like Deca. Then I was like, right, I'm gonna do another cycle and I'm gonna try the big shit. So I tried Trent, and
Big boys.
basically like I was like really a very hateful individual at the time. Like I was spending a lot of time with like, how can I, not incels, but like people that just hate other people for the sake of just hating people because they hate themselves.
Yeah.
And I was one of those guys. And like I go to the gym, bunked up on Tren, if I could make it to the gym, by the way, because most of the time I'm at home masturbating because I don't have the drive to do anything but masturbate because it's serotonergic. But yeah, it basically just made me feel kind of invincible. But it's like I feel like I feel like a lion. Basically, I'm just walking through like the door or whatever. People are looking at me. I'm like, right, I'm gonna kill you. I'm gonna kill you. I'm gonna fuck you. I'm gonna kill you. And like that's how my head felt at the time because I just didn't give a fuck. But trend amplifies who you are times the negatives times a billion. And you know, my mother would like say something to me, I'd just shout back, like, shut up. Like completely out of like no reason. Like she's not even saying anything bad. She's being nice. I just like kick off. And yeah, it wasn't a nice experience. However, like the confidence was just incomparable to anything I've ever had in my life.
Man.
So
But
sounds good.
but
When
tell
do we
him
start?
but tell him what happened, like with the surgery and all.
Oh shit. So this was this wasn't on trend, this was on Deca. And I think I front loaded, which
Was that after trend? You've done trend or
yeah,
before?
but I only tried trend because a bouncer at a bar I went to said you should try it. So I was like,
Right.
I'll try it. He was a bodybuilder. But
Before you continue, like it's funny how you say that. I was literally watching a video how with men, like when you
he was
look at the
Polish as
spectrum,
well.
it's like they're either men are either the most successful, but men are always the poorest. So it's like women are
Yeah,
super conservative, as in like they'll do research, these things and all that. But men, it's like we'll risk it
we'll
all.
make him go home.
Like
Yeah.
you made an example, like you'll be cycling a bike and you'll hear guys talking about, I'm going to invest my money into this. You don't do any research, you put everything onto this stock, even though you just risk it all.
Dogecoin.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then you then you become a millionaire.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's I can't remember the name of it. It's there's a thingy for it. Jordan Peterson was talking about it, how men dominate the both sides of the graph, like the most successful and the most unsuccessful, whereas women are in the middle. And the problem is like feminism is trying to normalize women going from the middle to the middle of the top, whereas the bottom, which is the majority of men, are completely disregarded. So it's just shit. But yeah, do train, guys.
Yeah. Talk about the surgery thing.
Okay, so essentially, uh, I'm sure the stuff I was taking was pharmaceutical, but I did what was called a front load because I was going to Bulgaria at the time to go and see friends and party and see my family, whatever. And basically, I read that it's okay to take a huge amount that's going to continue over the next few weeks. And they call it front loading. It's a normal thing that guys have done before. So I was like, right, okay, I'm going to front load 1.2 grams of testosterone. Grams, not like the average is like 500, and 1 gram of Deca, which again you're meant to take like something like 300
A
so
week,
I
is
was
it?
like, right,
300 a week?
yeah, 300 a week. So
Right.
I took a gram of that and like 1.2 grams of test, and then the next day happens. I go to the airport, and
How did you feel once you took that? Or was it like a slow release?
they're slow acting. Yeah, they're
Ah,
slow acting. So yeah, you don't feel much, but yeah, I basically, when I got on the plane, I started getting really bad indigestion. So it felt like.
yeah.
I thought it was from the dodgy protein shake I bought from the store, but apparently the need to go for a shit without being able to go for a shit is a sign that your appendix is about to explode. So yeah, I got off the plane, everything was fine, and then the next day, like 4 a.m., I feel like a bang right in my abdomen. I'm like, yo, what's going on here, man? I don't know, I had some mad wind or something. So I go back to sleep. 2 hours later, another bang. I'm like, yo, bro, what the fuck is wrong? I can't move at this point. Like everything is just extreme pain. So I call on my cousin. I'm like, yo, there's something wrong. He tells me to stop being a bitch because he was used to me being a bitch. So I'm like, whatever. I try to go back to sleep. Wasn't working. Called my grandmother. Went to the hospital. Wheeled me around a bit. Didn't know what was on. And then they put me on this bed. They put this tube down my nose. Horrible thing, man. Straight into my stomach. And every time I swallowed, bro, the contraction in my throat hit the pipe.
Yeah.
And it made me vomit this dark green bile, bro. So it's just nasty stuff. But, I got put to sleep, shaved by some old grannies down there. And then I wake up, I look down, I'm like, yo, what the fuck? Dude, but I got a huge strip of like plastic down me. I'm like, yo, what happened? And yeah, I get told this peritonitis. I'm like, yo, what the hell's that? Yeah, your appendix exploded, mate. Oh shit. So yeah, apparently when your appendix explodes, all of the lining of the organs get covered in this bile, which then, because it's acidic, it begins to burn through the lining, and if it goes through into the organs, it causes organ failure. And that's how Houdini died. Actually, he had peritonitis from he took a punch to the stomach or whatever. And yeah,
That's mad. And like, look at you now, like the journey you went through from being like going through that. Like a lot of guys would just like give up, like going through like super beta, breaking up with their girlfriend, and then going through that. Like most guys would commit suicide at that point, but you kept pushing.
bro,
And
it only got worse after that. That was like the start. Like, at the start you're happy to be alive, blah blah blah. Then the depression hits in, you're like, shit, everything I've just worked for, like everything I've just done, I've just lost straight
mm,
away. Like I lost all of my muscle mass within the space of a week.
yeah,
And I went from 84 kilos to 62 in a week. I don't even know how that's possible, but yeah, things got worse. And there was, I mean, one time I was in Bulgaria, and there was this, I went to some tourist club, and basically some guy like picked a fight with me when my insides were held together by the plaster. Guy just picks a fight with me, knocks me over, shoulders me in the stomach, and I got hit in the face a few times, and I just completely broke down after that. So it was, bro, it was a horrible year. I'll talk to you in private about more stuff maybe in the
yeah,
future, but
yeah.
like things only continue to get worse. And then at the very end of it all, I'm like, I tried to commit suicide 2, 3 times by then. And it got to the point where I get an email from my father saying, oh, my mother's about to die. Could you come back to the UK? I'm like, if she dies, I'm killing myself. That's final. and she died when we got the plane back from my mum, and she died a few hours before that. So it was pretty shitty with timing.
Mm.
And then when I got home, dude, you know, I had no testosterone because I'd been off this gear. I felt depressed, like my dick didn't work, nothing worked. I just sat down 6 months straight smoking weed, nothing else, just smoking weed every single day.
Moment of silence. That's crazy.
Yeah.
But look at it, like, look how much you learned from that. Look who you've become, and look at where you're heading to. Like, you have a bright future ahead of you, and you know that deep down. You just need to, like the thing I mentioned. What was the quote? But as for you, be strong and do not give up, for your works will be rewarded. 2 Corinthians 15:7. Always keep that in mind.
I always felt like I had a mission from God that I need to fulfill.
Yeah, God, like, we're here to be all we can be, not a fraction thereof. And one exercise I like to play with: what would you strive for if anything you wanted to accomplish is possible? And strive for that. Set goals beyond your lifetime. With man, this may be impossible, but with God, all things are possible. When Jesus said, for a rich man to get into heaven, it's like a camel go through a needle, whatever. But then he said afterwards, and that's where everyone quotes, oh, you can't be rich and go to heaven. But then afterwards, Jesus said, with man, this is impossible, but with God, all things are possible. And you need to realize that.
And I think the idea of what rich is, I mean, ultimately, being rich is about giving more than you take. And that's it. And money, like, it doesn't have to be money. Like, so long as you can give more to others than you take, you're a rich man.
That too. And money, like, if someone is wealthy, money is a byproduct of value.
Yeah. It's correlation in a sense. It's like you've
just like
achieved
muscle is a byproduct of strength.
You don't get money without giving. That's how it is.
Exactly.
And if you do, you'll probably lose it. Like, if you win the lottery, you see the people who, you know, they win the lottery, then they're like, oh, I'm going to do all this stuff. But even then, they have all this money. They just take. They spend it all on stuff they want to do, drugs, party, or whatever. Take. They lose it all, and then worse than before.
Exactly. Anyway, I'm going to be respectful of your time. Do you want to add anything else? We kind of talked about a lot of things. But
yeah, here's a good joke for you. What's the difference between a hormone and an enzyme?
I don't know. What is it?
Can't hear an enzyme.
I don't get that.
You're terrible, mate. You can't hear an enzyme, but you can hear. There we go.
That's haram, bro.
Haram. Terrible, man. Terrible. Oh my days.
Anyway, I'm gonna stop. Anyway, hopefully you enjoyed this episode. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode. You got some value from this. That being said, I'll see you in the next one. Peace. And make sure you check out Johnny. I'm gonna leave links for his TikTok, Instagram. He needs to start YouTube as well. Everybody go onto his Instagram and message him. YouTube.
Message DN to me, bro. That'll be more effective.
Message him DZN.
Right, bro. Let's love and leave you, bro. All the best, man.